Did you know ASBN, America's Small Business Network, is now available on your TV? That's right. ASBN is now streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire Stick, and available for download in the App Store. Scan the QR code to download the ASBN app today. Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick, exclusively on ASBN.com.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of The Small Business Show, exclusively right here at ASBN.com, and now streaming on Roku, Fire TV, and Apple TV. As technology continues to evolve, businesses are finding ways to embrace AI. However, there are do's and don'ts when it comes to using artificial intelligence. Joining us now to discuss why businesses should be careful when mixing accounting and AI is columnist, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and small business expert, Mr. Gene Marks. You have seen him here before on our network. He is all over the place and consults with so many different businesses, large and small, to help in their profitability. So you recently wrote an article on this very topic, Gene. So thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk about it.
Jim, thanks for having me on. So not only did I recently write this article, but I cover technology for Forbes, and I write 6 times a month there. And my columns have just been all about AI over the past year.
Sure.
And just so you know, for you and your audience, I do a lot of speaking, more than 50 times a year, and there's a huge appetite among associations around the country to learn more about AI. So it's a really, really relevant topic, and I think it's a game-changing topic. And you said right before we started talking that AI is probably going to replace you and me in the next few years.
That's right. It'll be 2 holograms here that just look like individuals, but all the questions. By the way, the questions might be better, the answers might be better based on what AI
Probably
is able to come up with, right?
Probably so in my case, but we can't look at AI that way. Artificial intelligence is nothing more than a developer's tool, and it is something that, as people that run businesses know, it can evolve into and is evolving into an expert assistant that can guide us and help us, that's got our back, that can give us great advice. And just as an aside, I pay the $20 a month for the Chat GPT 4. It's the enterprise version of, it's not the free version.
Sure.
Because it's trained on recent data, and it's actually really good. The responses that I get better than the free version.
Sure.
And I use it all the time. It helps me write. It helps me come up with headlines. It helps me. I have questions about my business strategy, taxes, HR. It gets you 80% there. And I just want people watching this to know that AI is a friend, not a foe.
So then, having said that, what's the downside of it? Why would you recommend that some people shouldn't use Chat GPT for accounting?
Well, one of the pieces I referenced in Forbes was about accounting, and there was a study that was done that had I don't know if it was ChatGPT, but one of the other generative AI platforms take like CPA exams and try to answer accounting questions, and it did not do very well because AI does have its limitations, and right now, math is one of those limitations. Now it's going to get better, but it is much better at scanning data, the internet, your internal data, creating large language models, interpreting that data, and then giving you an answer back. That's more subjective than objective. But when it comes to actual numbers on doing things in that, like for example, AI has shown that it can perform pretty well on bar exams, for example, and legal applications, because there's some nuance there. There's, it's more of a subjective interpretive type of thing. But on the accounting side, AI so far has shown that it doesn't hold up to snuff. So if you're an accountant, you've still got your job right now, and that's good news.
That's right.
But even having said that, I still say to I'm an accountant, so I still say to my clients, listen, you want like some tax advice or an answer to a tax question, by all means, you can ask Chat GPT. It will give you responses. Just before you put it into practice, run it by your accountant first and see if it makes sense. Because it's you're not going to rely 100% on Chat GPT to tell you how to save taxes.
That's right. So the second point in your column discusses grant assistance. Or assistant rather. Tell us about that and the potential benefits it could offer to businesses.
Well, AI itself is and again, it depends on the model that you're working with. So there are, I actually just am writing about this right now, that there was a study that just came out last week, Jim, that said that more than 50% of small businesses don't even know that there are grants available to them, whether it's from nonprofits or even for-profits.
That's right.
My wife runs a small nonprofit, and she's she needs somebody to write grant proposals. I mean, applying for grants takes a long time to do. It's hard work, but a lot of it is repetitive, and a lot of it can be trained. And if you have the right the approach to using like a Chat GPT or a generative AI product like it, you can ask it to come up with a formal grant application or a grant proposal based on your business. This is what you want to use it for. This is the amount of money that you're looking for. It will do that for you. Anybody will tell you though that it's not perfect, but it's literally like you have a grant writer, a professional grant writer that is putting together a grant proposal on your behalf, but you're still going to read it and tweak it and make some changes to it, of course. But ChatGPT will do a lot of that for you, particularly the paid version, and do it pretty good, like get you into scoring position so that you don't really necessarily have to hire a grant writer to do this. And we talk about different jobs that might be eliminated. The really great grant writers will use ChatGPT and products like that to do the sort of the grunt work, and then provide a value add to their clients, with good advice and good approaches. But for us, if you're looking for a grant, you're running a small business, and you have a grant application that you have to fill out, you really should use a generative AI product like a ChatGPT to at least get you started.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. A great idea, great suggestion. I'm glad you brought that up. In your column, you also mentioned Google's offering new features to help merchants stand out this holiday season. What is it, and why is this important for small business owners?
Google itself is also leveraging AI, and you talk about all the different ways that AI impacts us without us even knowing it. So it's setting up special searches, by the way, that if you set yourself up on Google My Business, and you identify yourself as a small business, then when people search for products or for you, particularly localized search, Google will highlight that you're a small business. And that's a huge thing, particularly for businesses looking to sell on Small Business Saturday and throughout the the holiday season. People like to buy from small businesses. I didn't mention that column because they released the news afterwards, but they're making some unbelievable changes to maps as well, which I can't wait to see, where they'll be leveraging AI, particularly for people walking down the street, to have like a street level immersive view of shops and buildings around them as you're walking. I know.
That's crazy.
And you know how tough it is? I don't know if you feel the same way, like when you're walking with Google Maps. I sometimes find it frustrating if you go the wrong way, or you hold the phone the wrong way, or whatever. It's using AI to improve that interface a lot more. And if you're a small business, you really want to be investing in making sure that you're that your listing on on Google My Business reflects everything about your business, and that you've updated with photos and menus and obviously reviews as well. You'll show up on those Google Maps applications, and obviously it will help you improve your traffic.
Yeah, for sure. Wow, that's I'm excited to see what those advancements are in that area. Hey, let me switch gears a little bit with you. You are an accountant. You are a small business expert. We've called on you many times, and thank you for all the content that you've given us here at the show. With all the things that we see out there, the craziness that's going on, the high interest rates, the gas prices, the the inflation, the things that are happening even on a global basis that have some people very nervous right now. Is it a good time to start a business?
So there's never a bad time to start a business. I've always told people that if you're waiting for taxes to go down or the economy to get better or a war to end to start a business, these are things that are just really out of your control.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's ever a bad time to start a small business. It really just depends, Jim, on the kind of business that you're starting.
Yeah.
It is a if you pick the right industry and certainly the right location. I was just thinking a perfect example in Philadelphia, where I live, there's a lot of construction on a street called Washington Avenue, near Center City. All these new condos, are going up, and buildings, residential buildings all over the place. And I think to myself, like, man, if I was younger, I had the inclination to do it, I'd probably open up like one or two like corner delis or bodegas, because the people there are going to want to eat or buy milk or eggs or whatever, and it's a convenience thing. And I could really see like a smart entrepreneur picking out areas in a city where there's development going on and saying, let's just have a really unsexy, boring but necessary grocery store right near. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And it doesn't make a difference how the economy is going. It just it depends on what's really happening locally.
That's right. That's right. And we should mention there's so many brands out there today that started during a recession in the whether it be in the 60s or 70s or 80s or what have you, that are still alive and well and flourishing today, that started during times that everyone said, hey, interest rates are high and unemployment is high and it's not a good time to start. And lo and behold, they started their business, whether it be Starbucks or.
You're right, and if I can even add to that, there's been a record number of new business filings over the past few years.
Yes,
a record number.
That's right.
I know why it is. It's a combination of things, obviously, but one of the biggest things driving it is there's so many remote workers and people working from home. That they've got the flexibility, and I think the added time they could start up their own business, and it's so inexpensive to start up a business now.
That's right.
With the technology being the way it is. The big question is it a good time to start up a business because it's easy and you can make a few bucks on the side selling something on Etsy? The real question is it a good time to quit your job for your business?
That's a good question. That's a good question. That's right. And sometimes we let our heart dictate, not our head, that, oh my gosh, we're going to do great. And because I sold a couple of things on Etsy, if I give it all my time, I'm going to do well and I'm going to be able to afford my house and my kids and the schools and everything else on this income. And it's not always the case. That's a very good point that you just made. A side hustle doesn't necessarily mean it's ready for prime time. So before you turn in that resignation, make sure your business is going to be able to carry you, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And I've got one other thing to add, Jim. I hope you don't mind. When people do ask me about starting up a business, there's never a bad time to start up a business, but I'll tell you what, it's a really good time it is right now, and it will be for the next few years, is buying an existing business. I mean, we have just this generation of the silver tsunami of baby boomers who are retiring. They're looking to get out. I don't know. I meet like so many people in the places I go to that say, oh, I want to start up a business. And I think like, you're probably not going to come up with the most innovative idea in the world. I mean, there's only so many Ubers or Airbnbs, but if you want to start a business in an industry that you think you've got some experience in, buy an existing one that already has a customer base and infrastructure and employees, and then make it your own,
I agree.
So it's a good time to buy.
I agree. And take the guesswork out of it. If the business did $1 million last year and it's been in business for 10 years, it's probably going to do $1 million next year. So you can from your point, you can build from there. Get it to a $2 million a year business or more. I mean, I'm just using that number arbitrarily, but who knows? But that's a very, very good point that you make. And I have read a number of studies that say a lot of the baby boomers, which I know I am one of. I don't know if you are one of, but certainly
1 year off. I was
you're
born
1
in
year
65.
off. Okay,
I think 60,
I'm very
I think
close.
64 is the cutoff.
Okay, I'm 1962, so I will be 62 next year. But nevertheless, so I fall into that category of starting to think in terms of winding down and what does that retirement look like. So no, you can't buy ASBN yet, but maybe one day, but nevertheless,
well, no, it's very true. And to use you as an example, I mean, if somebody wants to get into the media business and they want, and say maybe it's not particularly a small business, focused or whatever, but you've got infrastructure that you've built up. You've got your studio and you've got your staff and you've got a model for doing something.
That's right. Turnkey.
And somebody were to buy your company, they could certainly pivot into a different direction, but at least they got this head start rather than creating it all from scratch.
That's right.
So you don't have to start up a business. You can buy one and it gets you much further ahead in the game.
I agree. Gene Marks, author, columnist, keynote speaker, small business expert, CEO of the Marks Group. Thank you so much again for joining us on the show. We very much appreciate all the time that you give us, and I know that our viewers love when you're on. How do we know? Because we get a lot of emails. It's, that guy was great. Now ask him X, Y, and Z. So really appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick, exclusively on ASBN.com.